When Gregory Peck wasn't making audiences and co-stars swoon, he was making them think, both on screen and in real life. He wasn't afraid to ask difficult questions, even if it meant risking his career to spark important conversations. Though widely admired for his integrity and charm, he wasn't without his flaws. Beneath the image of a Hollywood gentleman, he carried a secret he kept hidden for most of his life, one that was nothing short of scandalous. Born in La Jolla, San Diego, California, on April 5, 1916, Peck had an early introduction to heartbreak. By the time he was 5, he witnessed his parents' marriage fall apart, leaving him with a deep sense of unease about family life. After their separation, neither parent took full responsibility for raising him. Instead, his grandmother stepped in, and he spent much of his early childhood without either his mother or father at home. One of his fondest memories with his grandmother was their weekly trips to the movie theater. From the age of 5, he was captivated by the magic of film, watching picture after picture as his fascination with the silver screen grew. However, not every movie experience was a pleasant one. At 9, he watched The Phantom of the Opera, a film that terrified him so much he refused to sleep alone for some time afterward. By the time he was 10, his grandmother decided he needed structure and discipline. She enrolled him in a Roman Catholic military academy, a strict environment that instilled in him a sense of responsibility and self-control. Peck struggled with loneliness at the cadet school, longing for the warmth and familiarity of his grandmother. The strict environment, coupled with the absence of both parents, forced him to develop resilience. Though quiet by nature, his teachers noticed his unwavering determination and focus, qualities that helped him navigate those challenging years. Eventually, he left the military academy and entered San Diego High School, where he discovered a talent for public speaking. His deep, steady voice set him apart, though at the time he hadn't yet considered acting as a career. After graduating in 1934, he initially pursued medicine, enrolling at San Diego State Teachers College before transferring to the University of California, Berkeley. But despite his academic ambitions, he soon realized that the path he had chosen might not be the right one. Even with tuition at Berkeley set at just $26 a year, he struggled to afford it. Determined to stay in school, he sought out any campus job he could find, eventually landing a rather unexpected position, one that would place him in an unfamiliar but entertaining setting. To make ends meet, Peck took a job as a hasher, serving meals at the Gamma Phi Beta sorority house. The sight of the tall, striking young man waiting tables for a room full of sorority sisters didn't go unnoticed, sparking plenty of chatter. But regardless of the attention it brought, the job provided just enough income to keep him afloat as he tried to figure out where his future was truly headed. During his junior year at Berkeley, Peck enrolled in a theater class on a whim. It didn't take long for him to realize that performing on stage brought him a sense of fulfillment that studying medicine never could. The thrill of acting, the energy of an audience, and the applause left an impression on him that no academic pursuit had ever managed to do. Inspired by this newfound passion, he made a bold decision. Just one course short of earning his degree, he left Berkeley behind and set out for New York to pursue acting full-time. Once in New York, he set his sights on Broadway and began training at the prestigious neighborhood playhouse to refine his craft. But without financial support from his family, he quickly learned that chasing his dream would come with real hardship. Money was so scarce that there were nights he had nowhere to sleep, forcing him to rest on benches in Central Park just to get through. To survive, he took whatever odd jobs he could find. One of them was working as a barker at the 1939 World's Fair, standing outside attractions and calling out to visitors to lure them in. It wasn't glamorous, and it certainly wasn't acting, but it was enough to keep him going as he fought for his place in the world of theater. To make ends meet while staying close to the entertainment world, Peck took on various odd jobs, one of which was working as a tour guide at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. He also led visitors through the grand halls of Radio City Music Hall, sharing insights about the iconic venue. Though these were just temporary positions, they kept him connected to the industry he longed to be part of. He saw the inner workings of show business up close, observing performers and productions, while quietly nurturing his own aspirations. His big break came when World War II created an unexpected shift in the theater world. With countless actors drafted into military service, vacancies appeared on stage, providing rare opportunities for new talent. Unlike many of his peers, Peck was exempt from the draft due to a back injury sustained during dance training, which left him classified as unfit for military service. While others went off to war, he remained in New York, focusing entirely on honing his craft. The absence of established performers gave him a chance to shine, and he took full advantage of it, appearing in nearly 50 plays during the war years. As his career flourished, his personal life took a new turn. In 1942, he married Finnish-born Greta Kukkonen, a practical and business-savvy woman 5 years his senior. Their marriage brought a sense of stability to his otherwise unpredictable life as an actor, and over the years they welcomed 3 children. Despite Peck's growing commitment to his family, the pull of Hollywood was becoming impossible to ignore. Casting directors and producers had begun to take note of the tall, charismatic actor whose deep voice and commanding presence had made waves in the theater world. It was only a matter of time before he transitioned from stage to screen. That moment arrived in 1944, when he was cast in his first film, Days of Glory. While the opportunity was thrilling, making the shift from live theater to the more intimate, controlled nature of film acting was a challenge. Accustomed to projecting his voice and movements for a theater audience, Peck had to adjust to the nuances of the camera, which required a more restrained and naturalistic performance. The film itself, a war drama about the Soviet resistance against Nazi forces, failed to connect with audiences and critics alike. Peck, though striking on screen, was critiqued for being somewhat stiff and lacking emotional depth. Yet, even in a lackluster film, his presence could not be ignored. His distinctive baritone voice and strong, noble features left an impression, and Hollywood began to take him seriously. Days of Glory may not have been a success, but it marked the beginning of a career that would soon catapult Gregory Peck into the ranks of Hollywood's elite. Rather than following the industry norm of signing an exclusive contract with a single studio, Peck made a bold decision to maintain his independence. In an era when actors were typically bound to long-term deals with major studios, he chose to work with multiple companies at once. This unconventional approach gave him the freedom to select roles that aligned with his artistic vision and personal growth, rather than being confined to a studio's roster of films. While risky, this move allowed him to build a career on his own terms, a rarity in 1940s Hollywood. His breakthrough came in 1944 with The Keys of the Kingdom, where he played a priest whose journey spanned decades, requiring him to age from his 20s to his 80s. Though the film itself received mixed reviews and performed modestly at the box office, Peck's performance stood out. Critics praised his ability to bring quiet dignity and emotional depth to the role, and his work earned him his first Academy Award nomination. The recognition established him as a serious talent and put him firmly on the path to Hollywood stardom. As his career gained momentum, he became known not just for his acting but also for his strong political and moral convictions. During the late 1940s, when the House Committee on Un-American Activities launched its investigation into suspected communists in Hollywood, many in the industry remained silent out of fear. Peck, however, refused to back down. He openly condemned the witch hunts, speaking out in defense of free expression and the right to dissent. His stance made him a target for conservative groups, but he remained unwavering in his beliefs, even at the risk of alienating right-wing audiences. Determined to prove his versatility, Peck took on a role in Alfred Hitchcock's 1945 psychological thriller Spellbound, starring opposite Ingrid Bergman. However, behind the scenes, tensions ran high. Hitchcock had initially wanted Cary Grant for the lead, and Peck was well aware that he was not the director's first choice. The chilly dynamic made for a challenging work environment, but Peck pushed through. In the end, the film was a commercial success, and his smoldering on-screen presence captivated female audiences. The impact of Spellbound on his image didn't go unnoticed. Producer David O. Selznick, always attuned to audience reactions, observed that during test screenings, women whispered excitedly whenever Peck's name appeared on screen. Recognizing his potential as a heartthrob, Selznick capitalized on this newfound appeal, tailoring the film's promotional materials to highlight Peck as Hollywood's next great romantic leading man. It was clear, beyond his talent and principles, Peck was now also a bona fide sex symbol. Following the success of Spellbound, Peck took a bold step into the Western genre with Duel in the Sun, 1946, a film that pushed boundaries with its overt sensuality and intense melodrama. Dubbed Lust in the Dust by critics and audiences alike, the film sparked controversy for its morally ambiguous themes and provocative content. Several cities across the U.S. even banned it for being too risque. Despite the backlash, the role allowed Peck to break free from his usual noble hero persona, proving he could tackle complex, morally gray characters just as convincingly. Meanwhile, his outspoken stance on civil liberties continued to make waves. As the House Un-American Activities Committee intensified its investigations, Peck refused to remain silent. He doubled down on his opposition to the political witch hunts, fearlessly championing free speech and condemning the blacklist. His defiance put certain film projects at risk as the industry grew wary of associating with actors who challenged the status quo. However, his popularity remained untouchable, and his star power ensured that he continued landing top roles. Though best known for dramatic performances, Peck eventually embraced a different kind of challenge, a romantic comedy. In 1953, he took a chance on Roman Holiday, a light-hearted love story set in Italy. The film was originally pitched to Cary Grant, but he turned it down, feeling that the script revolved too much around Audrey Hepburn's character and didn't offer him a strong enough lead role. Peck, however, was unfazed by the prospect of being upstaged and saw the film's potential beyond his own screen time. In a rare act of generosity for a top-billed Hollywood star, Peck insisted that Hepburn's name appear alongside his above the title, predicting that she would steal the show, and he was right. Her performance won over both critics and audiences, ultimately earning her an Academy Award. Peck's willingness to share the spotlight only cemented his reputation as a class act, winning him even more admiration from fans and colleagues alike. By the mid-1950s, he also found a strategic way to balance his career with financial savvy. Realizing that working abroad meant lower taxes and broader creative opportunities, he began accepting more international projects. Spending extended periods in the UK, Germany, and Sri Lanka, he not only escaped America's steep top income tax rates, but also took on diverse roles that expanded his filmography. This decision allowed him to maintain artistic freedom while exploring a wide range of characters in new and exciting settings. In 1956, Peck took on one of literature's most formidable characters, Captain Ahab in Moby Dick. From the start, he had reservations about the role, feeling that Ahab's intensity and age were beyond his range. Despite his doubts, he committed to the project, enduring a physically grueling shoot that nearly cost him his life twice in near-drowning incidents. Unfortunately, the film failed to resonate with audiences or critics, and many felt Peck had been miscast. The disappointment was compounded when the movie flopped at the box office, marking a low point in his career. With a string of underwhelming projects weighing on him, Peck took a step back to reassess his choices. He returned to the U.S. searching for a script that could restore his standing as a leading man. Around the same time, his personal life was also undergoing a transition. After years of marriage, he and Greta Kukkonen separated, finalizing their divorce in 1955. Shortly after, he rekindled a connection with journalist Veronique Pisani, whom he had met years earlier. Now free, he invited her to lunch, and within 6 months they were married. Veronique's European elegance and sensibilities introduced a new perspective to his life, influencing everything from his personal style to the types of roles he pursued. Their relationship brought him stability, and they remained devoted to each other until his passing. Professionally, he was ready for a fresh challenge. In 1961, he both co-produced and starred in Cape Fear, a dark psychological thriller about a convicted criminal seeking vengeance. The film was intense and unsettling for its time, showcasing Peck's willingness to take on morally complex material. Its success revitalized his career and set the stage for what would become his defining role. In 1962, he portrayed Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, embodying the principled small-town lawyer who stands for justice in the face of prejudice. His powerful, understated performance struck a chord with audiences and critics alike, earning him an Academy Award for Best Actor. Decades later, the American Film Institute named Atticus Finch the greatest film hero of the past 100 years, a testament to the lasting impact of Peck's most iconic role. Though Gregory Peck built a reputation as a dignified, principled figure, he carried a secret that remained buried for decades. In 1945, during the filming of Spellbound, he had a discreet affair with his co-star Ingrid Bergman. The romance was kept completely private, with neither speaking publicly about it for years. It wasn't until 1982, after Bergman's passing, that Peck finally acknowledged the relationship, admitting, "All I can say is I had a real love for her." Even in confession, he remained a gentleman, never divulging details beyond that simple, heartfelt statement. Despite the success and admiration he enjoyed, tragedy struck in 1975, shattering his world. His son Jonathan, just 31 years old, took his own life after battling heartbreak and health issues. The loss devastated Peck. Overcome with grief, he withdrew from public life for nearly 2 years, unable to work as he struggled to come to terms with the unimaginable pain of losing a child. Peck had long been known for his strong moral convictions, and his beliefs extended into politics. He was an outspoken critic of the Vietnam War, openly supporting young men who burned their draft cards in protest, calling them heroes for standing up against a war he saw as unjust. Yet, this stance created a painful divide within his own family. At the very time he was making these public statements, his son Stephen was serving in Vietnam. The ideological rift between father and son was difficult, but neither wavered in their beliefs. In 1976, after years of dramatic roles, Peck took a surprising turn into horror with The Omen. Though he had never done a film in the genre before, he saw the potential in the chilling story and agreed to take a significant pay cut for the role. However, he negotiated a rare deal, 10% of the box office earnings. The gamble paid off tremendously. The film became a massive success, earning millions and providing Peck with one of the biggest financial windfalls of his career. Though the Vietnam War had created tensions within the family, time eventually softened the wounds. Peck never backed down from his anti-war stance, but he and Stephen found a way to reconcile. His son ultimately came to understand that his father's opposition had always been rooted in his deep belief in free speech and individual rights. While Stephen rarely spoke publicly about the conflict between them, their bond endured, proving that, despite differences, family always came first. In the 1980s, Peck took a firm stance on gun control, joining forces with Martin Sheen and Susan Sarandon in advocating for stricter handgun regulations. The campaign put him at odds with Charlton Heston, an old friend from Hollywood who led the opposition. Though the two had once shared mutual respect, their ideological divide strained their longtime friendship. It was a difficult but necessary choice for Peck, who believed strongly in the cause and was never one to shy away from taking a stand, even if it meant personal sacrifices. By the early 1990s, he began to sense a shift, not just in Hollywood, but in his own place within it. After making a brief cameo in the 1991 remake of Cape Fear, he recognized that the industry had changed. The days when directors actively pursued him for leading roles were fading, and while his presence was still respected, he was no longer at the center of Hollywood's attention. As the mid-90s approached, younger filmmakers who had grown up admiring him reached out with offers for small roles, hoping to bring him back to the screen. But Peck, ever the gentleman, politely declined most of them. He chose instead to dedicate more of his time to philanthropy, supporting causes close to his heart, including anti-hunger initiatives and children's charities. Giving back became his primary focus, allowing him to make a meaningful impact outside of the spotlight. Despite his quiet retreat from Hollywood, personal losses weighed heavily on him. In 1990, Ava Gardner, his dear friend since their days filming The Killers in 1946, passed away. Deeply affected by her death, Peck took an unusual but touching step, quietly taking in both her beloved dog and her longtime housekeeper. Some found it strange, but for him, it was a way to hold on to the memory of a cherished friend, keeping pieces of her world close even after she was gone. Though raised in a devout Catholic household, Peck had gradually distanced himself from the faith as he grew older. However, in the final year of his life, rumors swirled that he had quietly reconnected with his spiritual roots. Whether or not he fully embraced Catholicism again, it was clear that he had made peace with the complex religious heritage that had shaped his early years. Through all the ups and downs of his personal life, he carried himself with dignity. When asked about his affair with Ingrid Bergman, he spoke of it only briefly, choosing to honor her memory rather than indulge in details. Even in the 1990s, when whispers of possible extramarital relationships surfaced, they never overshadowed his unwavering dedication to philanthropy and humanitarian efforts. His focus remained on the causes he believed in, rather than engaging in personal scandals. His strong moral compass extended beyond his private affairs. Having witnessed the destructive nature of Hollywood's McCarthy-era blacklists, he remained deeply opposed to any new wave of political suppression. He openly warned against history repeating itself, urging people to recognize the dangers of silencing dissenting voices. By then, he was widely regarded as a statesman of the industry, respected, wise, and steadfast in his convictions. As his health declined, he withdrew from public life, spending his remaining time with Veronique and their children. He also reconnected with old friends, ensuring that no lingering conflicts or misunderstandings remained. Many admired how he faced the inevitable with grace, clarity, and an acceptance of life's final chapter. On June 12, 2003, at the age of 87, Gregory Peck passed away peacefully in his sleep, with Veronique by his side. Hollywood and the world at large mourned the loss of an actor whose presence had loomed large for decades, not just on screen, but as a figure of integrity and moral clarity. His funeral drew a massive crowd filled with friends, admirers, and colleagues from across generations. With so many in attendance, organizers implemented a unique system to ensure that only those who had truly known him could enter. The chosen password was fitting: Atticus. It was a name that had become inseparable from his own, the character who defined his legacy. Even in death, Gregory Peck remained a symbol of honor, wisdom, and unwavering principle, much like the role that immortalized him.